Good evening. How's everybody doing? Good. I know we've got some more people coming in. Getting kids dropped off. Okay. Holly and Kayla are passing out some stuff that we're going to use for an activity here in a few minutes. So while they're doing that, we'll just go through some announcements. Prayer focus this week, Virtual Learning Academy. Didn't know that was a thing. So that is the prayer focus for this week, praying for them, those students. Okay, and then the next thing, prayer pierces the darkness. This is the school prayer. They meet the second Monday of each month here in the dwelling to pray for our schools. So join us for that, the second Monday of each month at 6:30 here in the dwelling. And okay, the Common Grounds mission project for this month is a luggage drive. We're asking that you bring luggage, suitcases, bags, anything like that, gently used, to the coffee shop for the month of February, and that is going to kids in foster care. When kids are removed from their home and placed in foster care, a lot of times they don't have luggage or anything to take their belongings with them. So I have removed quite a few kids whose things went in black garbage bags. And donating gently used, nice, luggage items to those children so that if they do have to pack up and leave their home or their placement, that they have something to put their things in other than a garbage bag. And last is the well. So Pastor Rodney talked about this on Sunday, the legacy well. So just be praying about what you want to give to the well. We've got a lot of projects going on around here, and no amount is too small. So even if you've got some extra change you want to throw in there, the Lord can take that and multiply it. So you can put that in the well, or if you want to put it in an envelope and just write the well on the front of that, it'll get to the right spot. You can also give online and choose that as an option. Okay. So before we get started, I'm going to pray us in. Dear Lord, thank you so much for this time tonight, Jesus. Thank you that you are here with us. God, I ask that every heart in here, God, would be open to hear what you have to say to us tonight. We just invite your presence into this meeting. God, I bless every family represented here, every family watching online. God, that they would feel the abundance of your love. They would feel the overwhelming peace of Jesus. And the steadiness that comes from putting our faith in you. So God, that we bless our time in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay. So I'm super excited when we started talking about the marriage class and stuff at the beginning. Lonnie and Nikki were very excited to be leading that, and I don't know about you, but it's been so fun to be part of and listen to, and I've learned so much from it. But when they figured out that they were had already pre-planned a vacation for this week, Lonnie was like, "Hey, I need you to teach the 4th week." And I was like, "Lonnie, I've only been married 5 years. Like, I have not been married long enough to talk to anybody about marriage." He was like, "No, but I just need you to teach on communication, and you're really good at that." And I was like, "Oh, my husband might beg to differ, but okay." So I say that to say I have been married for 5 years, and there's a lot of people in here that have been married much longer than that, and you probably have some things that you could share. But part of my training is funny because I have one of your little sheets. Holly was like, "Did you get this from Lori," which is a therapist that we both know. And I was like, "No." She was like, "Oh, where'd you get this from?" I said, "I have a master's degree in this." She was like, "Oh, I didn't really know what you did." So part of my training for my degree and my license and what I do on a daily basis is not individualized or couples therapy, but it is in that vein of working with people on behavior and communication and healing their trauma and all of those different types of things that all end up impacting our ability and the way that we communicate. So I say that to say that there are a lot of tips and tricks and things that I learned in school and things that I have practiced and role played and all of these things on dealing with clients and how to de-escalate a situation and all of those things. And I can tell you that 6 months into being married, every bit of that information left my brain, and our communication was more like a screaming match in the Target parking lot, which is a true story, than it was anything remotely productive or healthy. So I say that to say, I'm going to give you a lot of information. I'm going to give you some tips. We're going to play some different things, but understand that communication is a skill and it is emotional. So there's going to be conversations that you go into that are triggering or that bring something up in you that then make that conversation an easy topic to turn from a simple discussion to a heated argument. And so these are tips and tricks and skills that you have to practice, and you're not going to get it right every time. And my husband can vouch for that I have a master's degree and I do this on a daily basis, and I still have to practice this on a daily basis when I talk to him, because he can bring out parts of my communication style that need to be quiet. Just like those people that live in our houses tend to do, right? Like, there's nothing like somebody that lives in your house that knows exactly how to push that one button every single time. Whether it's your spouse or your child or whatever. The other thing is everything we talk about in terms of communication, super important in marriage and also super important in every relationship that you have. Like, these are things that we can use when we talk to our kids, things that we can use when we talk to our coworkers, our boss. I had to practice some of them today with a coworker. So very useful. So before we jump into that, we're going to do a little bit of an activity. And so I need you to be in pairs. So if your spouse is here, that works out well. Partner up with your spouse. If your spouse is not here, then we'll partner you up with somebody else. But you need a partner. Miss Teresa is Donna. Miss Teresa. Miss Patty, is Mr. Mark here? Okay. All right, so everybody should have a blank piece of paper, a folded up piece of paper, and a pencil. I think your husband is out there with mine. We'll get them for that later. Okay, so what you want to do is one of you needs the folded up piece of paper and one of you needs the blank paper with the pencil. All right, and I want you to face away from each other, so whoever has the blank paper and the pencil does not need to be able to see what's on the folded up piece of paper. All right, so what you're going to do is I'm going to give you like 3 minutes, and whoever has the folded up piece of paper, you can unfold it. You're going to pick one item on that piece of paper, and you are going to, without saying what it is, describe to the person drawing how to draw it. Okay? So, without saying what it is, you want to describe the item to the person drawing and see if they can get it as close to what it's supposed to look like as possible. Okay? Let me give you 3 minutes. All right, you got about 20 seconds left. All right, time's up. All right, so show your partner what they were supposed to draw and see how close you got. Did anybody get pretty close? Yeah? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Huh. Okay, so think about like if you were the one drawing and you were dependent on somebody else kind of describing this flower to you, what kind of information did they give you that was helpful? A moon? Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. Okay. A starfish. You missed it, pig. Yeah, that was the key right there. Okay, so it sounds like, which this is a perfect example, a couple of you said like, hey, they said this, and when I hear this, I think this. Like a moon could be the half moon. That's probably what I would have thought. If he said draw a moon, I probably would have drawn it like that. Right, not a whole circle. So I love this exercise for communication because it shows how easy it is for communication to be misunderstood or for one person to have one idea. So for those of you who had to describe to the drawer, like what was going through your head? Like what was...
I described a former situation we've been in and what we found, like starfish. So
Mm-hmm.
I just described the whole situation to you.
Okay, so yeah, so describing a situation that both of you would know about or understand. Details. The more detailed, the better.
Well, I didn't think to tell it a flower.
Mm-hmm.
I just said it's shaped like a star. And it was shaped like a star.
Yeah.
And so he drew a star. But he did put stripes on it.
Hey, you got close.
I said, it's got but there's stripes on the
Mm-hmm.
on the sides. Okay,
Yep.
whatever. And I did, and he did make the dark center of it.
There you go. Okay, so hopefully you had some fun with that and it brought out some holes sometimes where we think that we're communicating something clearly, but the person receiving that communication is like, that was clear as mud. And so the goal for communication, this is our first kind of tip, is that communication has to be about connection. The goal of communication needs to be connection. Now, does that mean that you're always going to sit down face to face, gazing into each other's eyes, and having a meaningful conversation? No. But if you keep in the back of your mind that the goal here is to connect with my spouse or my partner or whoever I'm talking to, even if it's just about what's the schedule for today, then you go into it with a different mindset. So it's one thing for me to approach Jonathan and say, hey, I need to leave the house at 7:30. I need you to drop Mitchell off at daycare, and I need you to pick him up because I'm gonna be home late. Da, 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 da. If I go into the conversation and my first thought and my goal of the conversation is just to give him the information so that I can check it off my list. Okay, I told Jonathan, and then keep on moving with my day. I've missed something important. But if I approach that conversation with, I need to connect with him, and I don't mean like the type of connection where we need to be like, oh my God, I love you so much. You're just so great. But I need to connect with him, and I need to know that what I'm saying to him, he's hearing and processing, and we are on the same page about it. If I go into that conversation, just something that simple, with that at the forefront of my mind, then when I step into the kitchen to say all of these things and I see that he's responding to a work call and cooking dinner and Mitchell's running around singing Let It Go at the top of his lungs, and that's our life every single night. Just come by if you want a live action version of Frozen. Then I can see this is not the moment for me to start throwing information at him, right? Because we're not going to connect. I'm going to throw information at him. He's going to halfway listen because he's thinking about 12 other things and trying to block out the 500th time we've heard Frozen in the past 24 hours. And so I'm going to say all this information to him. I'm going to walk away. And then the next morning, when it's 7:30 and I'm walking out the door and he's like, where are you going? And I'm like, I told you yesterday I have to leave at 7:30 and you got to take Mitchell to daycare. What's going to happen? What? No. And now, where are we? If you're like us, it's, I did tell you. I told you yesterday. It's not my problem you weren't listening. You knew I was cooking dinner and he's screaming. I'm just being honest. Ask Holly and Philip. Y'all can come to our house. I'm not going to sit up here and pretend like we can't get into it. We're both hard-headed and strong-willed, so we can. And so now what happens is a simple interaction that if I would have waited, or if I would have said, hey, I really need to talk to you about the schedule tomorrow. Can you let me know when I can have your attention so we can work this out? I can avoid all of that, right? Just by going into it and going, my goal is to make sure that we're connected and on the same page. So always keep connection at the forefront of your goal in communication. All right, the next thing is identifying how you communicate. There's 4 types of communication. You probably use all of them. You have this on a piece of paper. So you probably use all of them in different scenarios. Does anybody not have one of these? Okay. The first one is passive. So passive communicators have difficulty maintaining eye contact. They fidget. They're constantly apologizing. They struggle to express how they feel or what they need. And they struggle to say no. So your passive communicators are those that are your people pleasers. They're like, oh, yep, mm-hmm. And in their mind, they're thinking, there's absolutely no way I can do those 10 things that he just asked me to do, but I can't say no and whatever, so yep, I'll figure it out. Then you have passive aggressive. In my unhealthy communication style, this is where I like to live. And I'll just be vulnerable and honest with you. And the shows that you live there too. So we like sarcasm. We make facial expressions that contradict what we're saying, like, sure, I have plenty of time to do that. Absolutely. Whatever you need, I got it. Spread rumors or give the silent treatment. We like to, we are not very good at regarding how other people feel in the moment. And the one that probably is my most used tactic is denying when you're upset. It's fine, I'm fine. I'm fine. We do not need sound effects from the peanut gallery. So, again, most of us have an unhealthy place where we live, and you're not perfect, so there's going to be some situations where you are a very assertive, healthy communicator, and some situations where you're not. It's okay. Perfection is not required, just awareness. Then you have aggressive communicators. So when they're confronted, they get hostile. They make uncomfortable eye contact. So these are the people that when you're talking to them about something, they're like in your face. And you're like, okay. These people can disregard other people's space, so they're the ones that are going to get right up on you. Crosses their arms, rolls their eyes, and their way is always the right way 100% of the time. So these are your more aggressive communicators. And then you have the area where healthy communication happens, which is assertive, which is being direct and honest, showing emotional intelligence, so understanding what's happening in the situation and how both people are impacted, being relaxed in your gestures and hand movements and facial expressions, maintaining eye contact, normal eye contact, and approaching it collaboratively. So again, most people have an unhealthy area where they live and can go back and forth. This is a skill. And so learning how to be an assertive communicator. For those people who are passive and kind of passive aggressive, assertive communication is hard because it's hard for us to be clear and direct about what we need. So Kayla and I work together, and you can ask her. Assertive communication is hard for me because it's hard for me to say, I need this. I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to stress somebody else out. I feel like I should be able to handle it. It was my responsibility to begin with. I shouldn't have to ask for help. I can get it done. But in a marriage and in a partnership, it's so unfair for me to keep that from my husband because then he can't meet my need. I haven't even given him the opportunity. And most passive-aggressive people, I'm not going to give him the opportunity to meet my need, and then when he doesn't meet my need, I'm going to be mad about it. And that's when the snide comments are going to start. Like, I saw that the dishes were piled up when I left for my work trip. And when I got back from my work trip 2 days later, they were in the same spot. Now, I didn't say, hey, it would be really great if you could do those dishes while I was gone. And then when I got home and they were all still there, I was like, well, guess nobody does anything around here but me. Sure, I'll do a week's worth of dishes. No problem. The whole house just smells terrible, but don't worry about it. No big deal. Y'all, I promise I'm not making this up. If we had a camera in our house, I would just play it. This is our real life. But how, like, not productive, right? Like, that doesn't get us anywhere. And so understanding, like, Where do you live? Where do you kind of live unhealthy? And then why do you tend to go there? And that's part of knowing yourself. A big area that I struggle with, and that I think a lot of women struggle with, is I don't want to be a burden to anybody. I don't ever want anyone to have to go out of their way, or I don't want to put undue stress on anybody just to help me. And so a lot of times that means I'm not communicating what I need, but then when my needs don't get met, or I get burnt out or exhausted, then I'm frustrated and snappy. And really, Jonathan loves me and wants to help me and wants to meet my needs, but he can't read my mind. So figuring out where you live, figuring out where your partner lives, so that then you can pay attention to that and go, ooh, that was passive aggressive. I shouldn't have said that. And the more you do that, then the more you start to live in this area of assertive communication, and the snippy, snappy, or aggressive, or covering up, then that starts to feel uncomfortable, right? Like at first, being assertive and direct and honest, it feels uncomfortable because we're not used to it. But after you do it for so long, then the other stuff starts to feel uncomfortable, and you're like, ooh, that did not sound good coming out of my mouth. I'm sorry. Okay. Next, identify the most important needs of your spouse. So there are 6 core human needs. So you need all 6 of these. But there's going to be certain areas that's more important to your spouse because of what they've walked through, or where they are in their life, or whatever. So the first one is certainty or security. So this one is a very high priority for me because I have been abandoned in romantic relationships in the past. So security, knowing that no matter what happens, no matter how heated the argument gets, no matter what the situation is, that Jonathan's not going to leave me, is important for me. That's a very high value, and he knows that. So when we get in situations or in conflict and I start reacting, he'll go, hey, is this that abandonment thing? And that helps me to go, oh, yeah. It also helps him to know that, because he can approach each situation by saying, like, hey, I'm not going anywhere. I need to take a time out for this conversation. I'm going to go outside. I'm not leaving, but I'm just going to walk outside for just a few minutes and calm down. Because when we first got together, if he walked outside, I freaked out even more and was following him. Where are you going? Where are you going? What are you doing? Who have you been with? We got into such a bad argument one night. This is no lie. I don't even remember what it was about. And he left and went to the gym and worked out because he was so frustrated. He was like, I just need a break from this conversation. And I freaked out. Like, it's embarrassing how bad I freaked out. I was like in my bedroom crying. I wrote him a letter and taped it on the outside of my apartment door so that when he came back, he would see it. This is no lie. But I was so scared that when he walked out that door, he wasn't going to come back. And he didn't do a good job of telling me where he was going. And by didn't do a good job, I mean he didn't tell me at all. He just walked out the door and got in his truck and drove away. So we learned in that situation, hey, if you need to take a break and go to the gym, okay, but you got to tell me that. Like, those words got to come out of your mouth. Hey, this is a bit much. I'm going to go to the gym, and I'll be back in an hour, and we can talk about it. Then I don't have to cry on the bathroom floor and write letters and tape them to the apartment door and do all this extra stuff. I can just be like, okay, he's coming back. The next one is variety. So in a relationship, you need challenges and goals that keep things exciting and keep things moving. This is another big one for us because we're both very hard workers. So if the same thing is happening over and over, if the day looks the same every single time, then things start to get stagnant and stale, right? And that happens a lot, especially when you have kids and you're just going through the motions. If you're like us and you have toddler monsters and you're like, we just do the same thing over and over. We do the same fight over and over. We sing the same song 50 million times. I'm so sick of Elsa and Olaf and Sven. Then you start to breed this stagnant thing. Your relationship needs challenges and goals to achieve and things to do to keep it going. Significance, every person needs to feel unique and important. And in a relationship, you need to feel like you are the most important person to your spouse. That at the end of the day, no matter what happens, Jonathan's going to pick me. He's going to be on my side. He's going to have my back every time. I need to know that. The next one is connection and love. This is where the love languages come in. It's not just about, do I know Jonathan loves me? Yes, but do I feel that? Do I sense that? Does he sense that from me? Are we doing a good job of communicating that to each other with our words and our behaviors? Growth. Every person needs to feel like they are growing and changing and evolving over time. And this can be a challenge in relationships if you're not communicating well with each other about how you're growing and changing. Because a lot of times what you see is couples grow and change, and they start growing and changing apart because they don't do a good job of communicating how they're growing and changing and doing that together. They start doing it separate, and then before you know it, you have those people who are like, oh, we've been married 15 years and I don't even know who he is. And then the last one is contribution. Everybody needs to feel like they bring something to the table. Everybody needs to feel like in this relationship, what I say matters. I contribute something. I'm not just riding on somebody's coattails. I'm just not here taking care of somebody's babies. Like, I am contributing to this relationship. I bring value to this relationship. And your spouse needs to know that you think that they do. Like, hey, what you do here is important. Your opinion is valuable to me. I need it. So figuring out what in those areas are important to your spouse. I told you that security is really important to me, and contribution is really important to me. If Jonathan makes big decisions and he didn't ask my input on it, that makes me mad because I want to feel like what I bring to the table in this relationship is important. So if you know that about your spouse, if you know, hey, these are the areas that are important to them, then you're able to meet them in those areas and make sure that when you're communicating and making decisions, that you're taking that into account. All right. Next tip for communication, remember the differences. So we did the Myers-Briggs personality test, and that showed you ways that you're similar and ways that you're different. I am a P, and if you remember what that is, it is wing it, no plan, flexible, let's go. I'm like 98% P. I'm good. Jonathan is like 99% J. So another one of our biggest miscommunications is we were going to New York City in March for our anniversary. If you've ever been to New York City in March, it's not warm. It's kind of cold. It was snowing. And I am not a planner or a very good packer. So Jonathan had learned this about me by now, and he's like, I made you a spreadsheet of everything that you need to pack for this trip. I mean, it had, down to hair ties, makeup wipes, this many pairs of underwear because we're going to be gone for this many days, this many, details. We get to New York, and I was like, we need to go to the store. He's like, why do we need to go to the store? I was like, well, it's snowing outside. And I don't have a jacket. He's like, you don't have a what? Katie, it's 30 degrees outside. You don't have a jacket? Nope. And I don't have makeup wipes. So you got to get some of those too. And I think I forgot my toothbrush. He's like, where's the checklist? I don't know. Did you use it? Well, obviously not. Half the stuff is missing. You didn't use the checklist? I don't even know where that checklist is. You gave me that, and I'm not sure where that ended up. But I don't have a jacket, and I'm cold, and so we need to go buy a jacket. And, it's not like you can just go buy, like, a little jacket, like a cheap. Like, no, we got to go buy, like, a winter coat because it's snowing, and it's 28 degrees outside. So this obviously goes over super well with my very Jay husband, who's a planner. And this is an ongoing issue for us. It's now not did Katie forget something when we go somewhere? It's just, what is she going to forget that we're then going to have to buy? So, but that's important to know, because if you remember that about each other and you understand that about each other, then when you get in those situations, now it becomes something that we can laugh about instead of something that we have to argue about. So now, the last time I had to go to Birmingham for work, when I called him and I was like, I got to go to Target. He's like, what'd you forget now? I was like, underwear. It's like, oh my God. I know. So, but now it's like a joke. Like, now it's something we can laugh about because he knows that that's just part of who like, it just is what it is. I don't know what to tell you. If you're a P, you understand. So understanding our differences and how that affects our communication. If you're an extrovert, when you get home for work, man, you're energized, you're ready to go, you're talkative, you're whatever. And if you're an introvert, you're like, I just got done listening and answering questions. Don't say one word to me. Be quiet. If you know that about each other, then when you walk into the house and you're like, oh man, I can't wait to tell her about this, and then you look and she's like, then instead of getting mad, why don't you want to listen to what I'm trying to tell you, then it's like, oh man, she's drained. I need to give her a few minutes. Women in general, this is very general, need to feel seen, understood, and safe. So we have this conversation a lot in our house. I don't need you to fix this. I just need you to listen. Hey, I'm trying to communicate something to you, and I'm not sure you're understanding what I'm trying to say. Men, in general, need to feel appreciated, free, not controlled, and they need to feel like you feel safe with them, like you can open up to them, like you can trust them with your problems. This is important to know about each other because, ladies, it's important to your husband that he does not feel controlled when you try to micromanage his schedule or tell him all of the 10 things he needs to be doing and why didn't you do this and what about this and what about this. It's probably not going to go over very well. And men, when your wife says, hey, this thing happened at work, and you are halfway listening to what she says and scrolling on your phone or screaming at the kids or trying to do this, and she's trying to express something to you and doesn't feel like you're listening or feel like you see her, understand her, you're probably going to get yourself into a situation. The next one is ask the right questions. Listen to understand, not to respond. 9 times out of 10, when we are in a conversation, we are thinking about what we are going to say. We're coming up with our response instead of listening to understand what the other person's trying to tell us. The next one is be honest and open. Say what you mean. Don't make your partner guess what you're trying to say. They cannot read your mind, so don't make them. And if you don't know what you're trying to say, then before you start the conversation, figure that out. There's a phrase, and it's called go low. So the idea is if I'm trying to communicate a need to Jonathan, let's say that I feel like we haven't really had a meaningful conversation. I don't feel like we're really connected. Like we've just kind of been living around each other, running around Mitchell, work, whatever. And I really want to feel connected to him. If what I say is, why are you always on your phone? Can you just put that down? I've made something about a phone that's really, hey, I feel like we haven't really spent a lot of time this week talking. Like, can we take some time after Mitchell goes to bed and talk for a few minutes, before we kind of wind down? I just really feel like we need to connect. That goes over so much better, right? And it really expresses what I'm trying to say. So it's really not about a phone. It's about, hey, I just want to feel connected to you, and I feel like we've been really busy and we haven't been able to do that. So can we take some time to do that? He's really receptive to that. He's not receptive to, can you just put that daggum phone down? Trust me, I've tried that. All right, the next one is be present. And when I say be present, I mean be in the moment and evaluate the moment. Is this the right time to bring this up? Is this the right time to have this conversation? So a good rule of thumb is halt. If you're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, don't talk about it. There's a story in the Bible where Elijah is whining to God. He's like, I just want to die. I just can't do it anymore. I just want to die. Just take me. And the Lord's like, here's some food. Take a nap. This is in the Bible. It's like, eat, take a nap. We'll talk about it when you wake up. Because we are not ourselves when we're hungry, when we're tired, when we're angry, or if we feel alone. If we don't feel like we've been connected and we're reacting out of that loneliness, it's not a good time to have this conversation. Also, know yourself. Listen, if you want to have a conversation with me after 9 p.m., not going to go well. I'm not going to hear anything you say. I'm going to be halfway asleep. Now, 7 a.m., I'm your girl. I'm up, I'm ready. Let's go. You can ask Jonathan. I'm like, and he's like, can you stop? I'm trying to get 2 minutes and 37 seconds more of sleep. So when's it the right time to have that conversation? If your kids were just running around making you crazy and you finally got them to bed and everybody's just like, oh, probably not time to bring up the finances. So just be present in the moment and pay attention to your spouse to know, hey, are they in the right headspace to have this conversation? Or do we just need to pause this, table it till a different time? All right, almost done. Next one, let things go. So if you've already resolved a situation, don't bring it up later as ammo to get your point across. If we resolved it and we've put it to bed, then that's where it needs to stay, right? And avoid using language like always and never. You always take their side. You never have time to just hang out with us. You always come home from work and you just want to go sit on the couch and not do anything. You never want to take me anywhere or do anything. Those really aren't fair, right? Now, it may be fair to say, hey, it feels like over the past couple of weeks, you've been real tired when you got home, and I feel like I've kind of been handling everything. Can we talk about that? Like, is everything okay? Do you need me to support you in an area so that when you get home you can be present with us? But always and never, that's not super fair. All right, the last few. Break negative patterns. So we all learned how to communicate from our parents. And some of those ways that we communicate are great, and some of those ways we learn to communicate are not so great. And so if your parents were quick to yell, then you probably learned to handle things that way. If your parents just didn't talk about any conflicts and shoved everything under the rug and acted like everything was okay, then you probably learned that's how you handle situations. So breaking those negative patterns takes time and practice. But a couple of things that you can do is pay attention to your tone. Are you snappy? Are you frustrated? Paying attention to your volume. You probably don't have to scream it for them to get the point. And your pace. Are you talking fast? That can come across as aggressive. Or are you keeping an even tone and even pace, like, hey, I really want to have a productive conversation here? And one thing I will say that I have learned is in those times where you do get snappy or you do elevate your tone or whatever, don't be scared to say, hey, we need to table this. I'm getting heated. Can we take a break and come back? And be quick to apologize. Like, you know it. Like, when you say something snappy or you say something rude, you know it as soon as it comes out of your mouth. So be quick to say, ooh, I didn't like the way that sounded. I'm sorry. And the last thing I will say that I think is very, very important when it comes to breaking negative patterns is when we do things like that, when we snap, when we make passive-aggressive statements, when we are rude or we give the silent treatment or we do those unhealthy communication tactics, and our kids see that, that's okay. You're human. Your kids don't need to think that you're some perfect person who's got everything figured out, because that's not true. So if they see you mess up and say something snappy, maybe it's to them or your spouse or somebody else, let them also see you make it right. Let them also see you fix it. So if I snap at Mitchell because I told him 3 times to not touch Winston's dog food while Winston is trying to eat it, just a regular occurrence in our house, and I snap and I go, stop it, I said no. He's gonna cry. And in that moment, I have 2 options. I can pretend like what I just did was okay. Well, he stopped, he put the dog food down, that's what I needed him to do. So, you're okay, quit crying, let's go, come on, you wanna watch Elsa? Or I can pause and go, oh, buddy, Mommy snapped, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have talked to you that way. You can't mess with Winston's food while he's eating. He might bite you. I don't want you to get hurt. So I need you to listen to Mommy. But I'm sorry for the way that I said that to you, because I shouldn't have said it that way. That's how we break negative communication patterns, is we model that to those around us and to our children, so that one day when Mitchell has a kid who's trying to dig in the dog food bowl while the dog's trying to eat, he doesn't snap. He goes, oh, yeah, my mom taught me that. This is the way I handle that. So there's a lot to be said about communication, but I hope that you walk away with some useful tips. And we have like 3 minutes, so if anybody has like just a pressing question you're dying to know the answer to, we can do that, or if not, we can head out. Anybody? Good? Awesome. All right, so just a reminder that next week we won't have service. We have the Valentine's dinner at the Webb's Place. If you're interested in going to that, it's $50 a couple. And then we also have the Parents' Night Out here for the kids. So drop your kiddos off, bring them in their pajamas. We're going to do, we'll feed them, have snacks and games and stuff. And then that way when you pick them up and bring them home, you can put them straight to bed. So 6 to 8. Mm-hmm. They will be there. We do have some adults. So, all right. Well, I'm going to pray and close us out. God, I just thank you so much for who you are. God, I thank you for every couple and family in this room, God. God, I thank you that their heart's desire is for their marriage to flourish. It is for their marriage to be thriving and fun, and that's your heart for their marriage too, God, that you created marriage to be a partnership and to be not a burden, but fun and helpful, and a way for us to lean on each other and not be alone. And so, God, I bless every family in this room. God, I ask that you would give them a special grace for communication in this season as they learn and hone their skills. God, that you would give them a special grace for that. And God, that we would feel the Holy Spirit inside of us every time we go to communicate in a way that is hurtful or unhealthy, that the Holy Spirit would prompt us in that moment to pay attention, and that we would be models of honest and kind communication that builds connection with our spouses, with our kids, with our friends, with our parents, with our coworkers, that relationships would flourish in this room. So we bless you, thank you, and we love you. In the name of Jesus, amen.